guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and go check out my content. So I want to talk about something that's been floating around in the digital space for the past week or so. A lot of brands having to really check themselves and really question the solidarity that a lot of them are displaying. So yeah, I kind of want to talk about diversity and inclusion and the scammery behind some of it, because I've been noticing a lot. So stay tuned, because we're going to talk today.
Somebody lied to her several times and told her that she was fly, hot, and sexy and beautiful.
I feel like it's the same conversation every time when diversity and inclusion and representation comes up, and we're seeing a whole influx of brands that are making statements saying, you know, they're standing in solidarity with the Black community, they're acknowledging the injustices that's happening in the world. And, you know, it's all well and good, except for a lot of brands, it's just, they're very empty statements and it's an issue. As someone who's Black, who's Muslim, and is a woman, I tend to fit a lot of these diversity boxes that need ticking for a lot of companies. It's a lot. So there's some things we need to unpack. These brands that are now, you know, all of a sudden posting all these Black people on their feed and talking about diversity and inclusion, hashtag Black Lives Matter, hashtag this, hashtag that, putting a band-aid on a problem that is showing its cracks, and people can see through that. There's so many brands recently that I've had to really consider purchasing things from because the authenticity isn't there. What we're seeing now, especially in the digital space, in the consumer space, is that we're seeing how important it is for brands to be authentic. There's a lot more to diversity and inclusion than just ticking boxes. I kind of wanted to open up about something I did today at my own workplace. I work in the tech industry, and for those of you that don't know, the tech industry is very much male dominated. In my team, I'm the only person from an ethnic minority background. So I'm the only Black person there, and I'm the only Muslim there. I'm the only minority in my team. So like, if I didn't exist in my team, the whole team will be white. So, and on top of that, I'm one of three women, as far as I'm aware, in my team. So it's like, yeah, this is bad. Like, I thought when I was working in the film industry, the diversity levels were bad. And then the tech industry was like, yeah, give me a minute. Let me show you what I've got. And it's pretty bleak out here in terms of diversity within a lot of corporations in the tech industry. I really like my team. I really like my managers. And after the conversation that I had today with my managers and my team, it's really reminded me that having a good manager, for example, and having a good team can literally make or break a job. Where I work, there's less than 5% of the workforce that is Black. Bear in mind, there are over 90,000 employees at this company, and less than 5% are Black. You lot can go do the maths in it, but I don't think you need to even complete that equation to understand that it's a problem. I really get along with my team. I think, considering this is my first tech job, I am in a very fortunate position to be surrounded by a group of people that are genuinely supportive, to have managers that are very supportive. And guys, I'm not saying this for like some PR stunt or because like my workplace told me. They don't even know I'm doing this video. So, you know, I really mean it. Like, for me, if I'm not being treated well, I will call it out. But I genuinely feel like I got very lucky for my first tech role to be around so many people that are supportive, despite the fact that none of them look like me. Everything has changed since the lockdown, the way we have to work, the way we're communicating. And I haven't seen my family for like 3 months now. And the lockdown has caused so much change and chaos. And I talked about my experience with lockdown so far in another video, so go check that out. But a lot has happened this year so far, and we're just about somewhat halfway. We're in lockdown. There's a whole pandemic going that has completely put the world at a standstill, but also causing so much chaos. There's protests happening, people are fighting for their rights, people are being treated so unjustly. As an employee, I was being affected because I'm the only black person in my team. And so I don't have the privilege of switching off from the news. I don't have the privilege of, distancing myself away from what's going on in the world because it's affecting people like me. It's affecting my community, it's affecting my people. The thought of worrying about whether your loved ones are okay or not, are alive or not, because of the color of their skin and the things that they're fighting for. Since the lockdown, everything that I'm witnessing has been happening online. And it's like I've just been consuming so much information at a ridiculous rate. And it's just a lot. It's just so much to process. And so, it's been building up for the past few weeks. And I just didn't know how to open up to my colleagues who are all white. I just didn't know. As friendly as they are, as supportive as they are, as kind as they all are, I just didn't know how to bring up the conversation, because we'd have like stand-ups, we'd have team socials, and they're all talking about all fun and happy stuff. And it's like, you know what, I'm gonna try and use this half an hour, these 15 minutes or this hour as a form of escapism. But it's like I'm sitting here as the only black person knowing what's going on around the world, and it's affecting me on a level that none of my colleagues will understand because they're white and they'll never have to experience this, and they're fortunate enough that they don't have to worry about these things. And I'm just sitting there like, I'm actually not okay. People are being killed. My people are being prosecuted. They're being murdered in broad daylight. They're being murdered on camera. It's just all the injustice and all the trauma that has just been building up. And then on top of the fact that, another report has been published showing that the virus is affecting black and brown people disproportionately, and then not being able to see your loved ones because of the whole lockdown situation. All these things were piling up on me, and I'm thinking, I don't know how to address this with my colleagues as the only black person in the team. How do I do this without having to be that person that always has to talk about race, that person that always has to talk politics, that person that always has to bring the stuff? Like, I was so mentally exhausted already, and I didn't know how to bring it up. So I held it in for weeks and weeks and weeks. It became an even more apparent problem, and it affected me on a different level, especially in the past 2 weeks with everything that's been going on. It's just been chaotic. I just found myself zoning out during calls. And I found myself like, the only time I felt like things were normal for just a while is like even when I'm doing work and like I'm really zoned into my work, or when I'm asleep. Like those are the only times. Today I decided to speak up about it. Yesterday, a live stream took place where the CEO sat in front of the Diversity and Inclusion Network and said, you know what? I need to hear from you guys. I want to know, how can I fix this? What are the steps I can take to change this? And it got me thinking about a lot of other corporations that are probably going to be having these uncomfortable conversations if they haven't already. It's crazy because the Black Lives Matter movement was seen as almost like a curse word. Kneeling as a form of protest was seen as like a treacherous thing to do almost. And now all of a sudden it's become symbolic as this, as this display of solidarity and as this display of, understanding the issue at hand, and seeing all these politicians and brands doing the absolute most. It's just made me think, nah, we need to address this now. I understand the sentiment, but my issues with it is that it places a lot of pressure and responsibility on people like me who should be benefiting from diversity and inclusion. But what tends to happen is that we fall into this trap of being tokenized. Here's 2 black people at most that we are going to reuse on our websites and show people, hey, we've got some people here that are not white. And a lot of brands do that. Very band-aid solution. And what tends to happen is those 2 people that are being used as, the diversity and inclusion PR package, they probably aren't being cared for and treated the way they should be treated as employees, with care and understanding. When it comes to hiring, when it comes to having people working at your company, a lot of these diversity and inclusion schemes, programs, cap a lot of people from underrepresented groups at entry level. So what you'll find is you have a company that's promoting these schemes to get more women involved, to get more ethnic minority groups involved, and they're trying to promote this diversity, but it's like you hire people based on that initiative, but you keep them at entry level. So your whole senior management team is pretty much all men and they're all white. The people that are on the boards that are in charge of decision making, that whole area, that whole space is completely white. It's not diverse. So it now becomes a cycle of, hey guys, look, we're doing an initiative, there's people applying, but then those people don't stay on because there's a lack of understanding and they experience a lot of things that are negative as a result of their background and as a result of not being in an environment or a work culture that caters to understanding them as I don't like using the word person of color, but I'm gonna have to, as a person of color. And what we're seeing now is a lot of brands that did not care to have any people from ethnic minority backgrounds on their pages or on their websites or collaborating with them that, have contributed to a huge disparity in pay. It's contributed to a whole culture where even when you do bring on people that are not white as part of diversifying your company, that's the only step you take. There's not enough initiative out there to actually push for change and to actually say, you know what, we're the company that's going to set the standard and show people like, hey, we can actually make this a system that's put in place that actually works. There's very few brands that generally do that well. And what we're finding now, which I absolutely love, is people dragging these brands for filth and really exposing them for who they are. I've noticed this especially with fashion brands, makeup brands. Some of my favorite products, whether it's my plants, whether it's, things that I furnish my house with, I've been pulling up to some of these brands thinking, hold on a second, where's the diversity here? Where's the representation? If I looked at your page on a normal day, it's not for me. You don't represent people like me. So now all of a sudden, I'm seeing posts about solidarity, but it's like, you can't have solidarity when your brand has never included us in the first place. How can you be representing all people and standing in solidarity with all people, regardless of your race, your ethnicity, your gender, your sexuality, but that doesn't reflect in your brand on a normal day? It's very exploitative and I'm not happy with it. There's a lot to deal with and there's a lot to process, and I think what we're seeing now is a huge movement where people aren't just trying to push for change. People are ready to hold these big corporations and these big brands accountable for their actions and really pull up the receipts on them like, hello, show us exactly what you're planning to do. Show us how you're going to action that solidarity that you've claimed to have on all your Instagram posts. Show us. While I was disappointed at the fact that no one reached out or, no one spoke up about it, no one acknowledged the fact that I'm the only black person on your team, and the fact that no one took the initiative. And I see this a lot with white people in general. There are some white people that genuinely are for the cause and they genuinely do support and understand and empathize with black people regarding this whole situation with the protests and, the whole movement and the injustices that have been happening. They do support. It's just a lot of white people are scared to take the initiative because they don't want to come across as insensitive. They don't want to come across and say something horrible or wrong. And that's understandable. But I need people to understand, especially white people, especially all these big brands. I need you people to understand that if you do not make your stance clear, if you do not declare your solidarity and also embrace the fact that you're going to need to have these uncomfortable conversations, if you are not going to acknowledge that properly, then everything you're doing is just a band-aid solution. Everything you're doing is not meaningful at some point. Like it's just not meaningful. People are seeing through that. Authenticity has become such an important factor in how you build a brand, in how you grow your business, in how you interact with your customers. Events that are unfolding right now in the middle of a pandemic, it's highlighting a lot of problems that Black people have been discussing for years and years and years, constantly being dismissed, constantly being told, oh no, we can't be too political. And now what you're seeing is the opposite. Brands are willing to stand up and be like, hey, look, Black Lives Matter. But now the real question is, what are you going to do after that? You as a brand, you as a corporation, you have a responsibility to take the initiative and be persistent with it and genuinely enforce and put in place a system that can tackle the issues that have been brought to light as a result of these incidents, as a result of what's going on in the world right now. Don't see it as, oh yeah, we're going to collaborate with a few people, we're going to address this here and there, we're going to tell you, yeah, it's going to be fine, we're trying to be inclusive, we're going to work on it, but then not engage with the community that can help you with that. I've been getting a lot of messages from white people online asking me to sit down with them and explain things and break things down, and it's like, you know what, in certain contexts, I'm happy to educate, but there comes a point where it's like, I am not your babysitter. I am not here to coddle your feelings to then now educate you. The same way a lot of you people can educate yourselves with what happened with the Holocaust, with what happened in World War, with all these other events, the same way you can educate yourself on that is the same way you can educate yourself about the injustices that Black people are facing, the history behind some of the things that Black people from across the globe have faced. So respect our boundaries as well, because I've noticed this a lot recently. So many people asking me to give them ideas to help them become more diverse and this and that. And it's like, baby girl, baby boy, brands out here, if you're asking me all these questions about how we can make things more diverse and how we can push for more representation, you're asking too many questions that is no longer advice, it's consultancy. So start respecting and put money where your mouth is. If you are about the solidarity and you have the budget, open your purse. Open your purse. It's as simple as that. The purse, open it. You see the thing that you put your money in? Open it. If you have no clue of all the racial injustice that's been happening, you're just completely clueless, you've been living under a rock, and you're like, what's the first thing I can do to help the people that need help, the people that are being affected by these protests? Open your purse, donate. There are loads of movements and organizations that are helping all sorts of people, specifically within the Black community, that are currently being affected by these protests and the injustices that people are speaking up about. Open your purse. You cannot have diversity without inclusion, and you cannot have inclusion without some sort of diversity. And you can't have neither if you're not willing to have those uncomfortable conversations and actually hold yourself accountable as to the issues that you have curated and maintained for a very long time. Don't let a bunch of sporadic situations that have been building up for years and years and years now wake you up if you know you can't maintain it. Shout out to all the people that are pushing through this pandemic, that are pushing through despite all the hardships. You guys, it's tough. I understand completely if you feel very deflated, demotivated, exhausted, and restless. These are all valid feelings, and please take care of yourselves. Please put your mental health first. I cannot stress that enough. As someone who's been really going through it, please look after yourself. And I will be back with more tech-related content. Don't worry, guys, I've got you. It's just, given the climate, there's a lot of things happening, and it's just been a bit overwhelming. I've kind of been trying to take some time off, and then after today and the conversations that I've had, been very emotional, and they've been very understanding. And this whole week I'm just gonna be taking it easy. I've taken some time off, and I'm just gonna embrace the fact that we are living in a very, very, very chaotic time. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you like my content, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe. The support has been unreal. So many things have changed for me, and so many opportunities have come about just by being myself on camera and sharing it with you guys. It's just been an amazing journey so far, and so I really, really appreciate the support. Thank you guys so much. Take care of yourself, look after your heart, and yeah, bye guys.